where is Mo Salah and where is the future of this Liverpool side in terms of its attacking?
I think Liverpool right now could do with Mo Salah because at the moment we're not. I think we've sorted.
Oh, you've changed your tune.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Eating his words and all that nonsense. I think since Salah come out the team, obviously Liverpool haven't lost yet, and I think the defence, crucially, is not as busy as it was. I think people have forgot how bad the defence was in the first half of the season. You know, I think we can see we lose by 3 against City, we lose by 3 against Forest, and we lose by 3 against PSV consecutively.
Back to back.
Yeah, back to back. 2 of them at Anfield as well. So we needed to fix the defence. I would argue that even though we're still conceding here and there, I think generally we're not giving up as much on the defensive end. And now the problem that maybe the new problem for Slot to solve now is, right, defence is looking better. Fix the attack now. You need more product. You need to create more. One of the recurring themes in his presses lately, you can see he's frustrated by how little Liverpool are creating. I think we were okay against Burnley, but you should be against Burnley. I mean, everyone creates against Burnley. So the big challenge Slot has got on his hands between now and maybe the end of the season is keep Liverpool's defence quiet but make the attack louder. Mm-hmm. And Salah should naturally do that. Salah should make the attack much louder. He should offer the left-footed dynamic that we haven't had lately. Obviously a really creative spark. It's just whether you can keep the balance. That's ultimately the big question. In terms of where, did you ask me where I would play him?
Yeah.
I think it would have been interesting to see, you know, the period where we used the diamond. Mm-hmm. It would have been interesting to see him on the right of the diamond, because then he's still getting in Salah kind of areas. He's still using his left foot, scoring goals and things like that. But lately we've moved a little bit away from the diamond, haven't we, the pentagon thing? And we've moved a bit more back towards 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3. So I'm not sure, but I would always obviously play Salah on the right-hand side of the pitch to some extent, with the diamond front 2 vibe being the most central that I would use him. Mm-hmm. And with that being the case, then I'm not sure. Wirtz could play. I mean, take your pick, really. To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan anyway of Wirtz on the right. I think it's okay if you go for Frimpong there against the low block on that, but I think Wirtz is better with a bit more of a left hand side thing. If you want to play him central, great, but you need to absorb that as a unit, because you might just concede more on the back of that rather than Szoboszlai being the 10. You know, we know he combined really well with Salah last season when it comes to like covering them and stuff, and Wirtz is a grafter, but he's not as much of an athlete as Szoboszlai when it comes to doing that. So it goes back to the, you know, this has been the story of the season, really. You've got good individuals everywhere, but getting the most out of them as a collective all at the same time is really not easy. And I think we're still in that position, because the squad hasn't changed since we talked about this 5 months ago or something. So he's still got them same concerns, but the difference is now we're not playing basketball anymore. Mm-hmm. Some people would argue this is worse because they're bored, but at least we're not getting beat. It's a low bar, as I said, but to get to a point then where you start winning, you need both ends to be firing.
What about a little bit more of a compact 3, like we saw at times in the last few weeks? Is that a position that allows Frimpong to really use his legs?
Yeah, it is, yeah. That would be interesting to see Salah do that, and to see, I was going to say to see Gakpo do that. I'm pretty confident Gakpo probably can't do it because he's extremely one-dimensional. But that's kind of what Pep did with Doku, isn't it? You know, we all associated Doku with being, you know, a classic chalk on your boots winger. Pep started playing him here, and it kind of unlocked him a little bit, and he started doing really well. So to see Salah do that would be interesting.
Because we know he can play the final ball as well, Salah.
Yeah. The only problem is, again, like in most games, obviously you would need Frimpong then to do wide stuff, if Salah's on the inside. And Kirkes is obviously playing over here, who again is a kind of advanced fullback who wants to get forward. So, you know, Liverpool, Marseille away, Bournemouth away. Karabakh should be a banker really, but then Newcastle, Man City. Does it feel too offensive? Do you know what I mean? Do you need different kind of profiles here and there?
One of the things I was going to suggest is how I would maybe make it balance is that, because you know, and it doesn't matter whether it's Szoboszlai or Curtis Jones in that. I've actually liked Szoboszlai deeper, although I do think he's slowing it down as well, which is actually something that is
I don't mind
said about Curtis Jones, by the way, when he plays that position. So I do wonder whether this is a Dom Szoboszlai who all of a sudden is being told he's slowing the ball down and the game down too much. I wonder if it's that position, because Curtis does that when he's in that position. Anyway, so Curtis Jones grew up playing that left wing. He can do that. We've seen him do that. Verts, interplay, changing, dovetailing positions, etc., etc. You get that bit more steel in the middle of the park from either having Jones or Szoboszlai there. I do wonder whether that could be something that Liverpool utilise.
Yeah, I would probably prefer Szoboszlai there, just simply because you get the press with him. I think he's arguably Liverpool's best presser. You get it with Jones too, but I think you want Szoboszlai in your high press, and he's more involved in your high press if you play him there versus there.
Can I offer you a reason why you might prefer Szoboszlai deeper though?
Go on.
That pass.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's why I think Szoboszlai has been dropped deeper the last two games for that switch, because I don't think Curtis is as good as it personally, but I agree with you about the pressing.
No, I agree, yeah. I agree. I think one of the issues though, if we're looking at, there's always going to be trade-offs, there's always going to be negatives here and there. You're never going to have a perfect system, but if you look at, if that's what Liverpool went for, you know, in like any of these games or whatever, say the next game against Marseille, if you're an opposition manager and you're looking at that, well, you know,
pick your poison.
Yeah, like would you look at that and like I would still look over here and think like, right, you're playing with Frimpong, who is a wing back, you're playing with Salah, you're playing with Gravenberch, who Gravenberch's good, you know, Gravenberch will put a foot in and all that sort of thing, but he's not like a true defensive presence, is he? So it probably, I think if we did do it, it probably would look classic Liverpool when it comes to getting targets down this side. But if you can absorb that, if you can find ways around that, and if you can ultimately get the attack firing, then maybe you do it, you know what I mean? But I think it feels like everything that we would come up with will have some form of that going on, where there will be somewhere where you're like, not too sure about that. But I don't really mind it though. I'd be interested to see it, specifically the Salah doing Doku stuff, where you no longer see him on the wing and he's inside.
He's not relying on his pace.
No, a few years ago I wrote a piece for, I think it might have been, it was either the Echo or Liverpool.com, so you're talking years and years. And I remember like, one of my takes at the time was the future. There was a game Liverpool played under Klopp, I think it was against Brighton, and Salah was just weirdly picking up the ball like here often, like really withdrawn spaces, and he was a bit messy like for Liverpool, where he was like creating. It was like a creative side of Salah that we hadn't seen before, and I was a bit like, maybe that's the future of Salah. When he loses the pace, maybe he becomes a bit more playmaking spark kind of vibe.
Rooney had a bit of that at United.
Yeah, it does happen a lot. Giggs ended up really deep, you know, by the end of his career.
Midfield, yeah.
And I think Salah's got the tools in possession. I don't think he's just a speedster. I think he's got like, he's obviously got a real eye for the pass. He's got far more assists than anyone would even think of. So to see him do that would be interesting. Obviously, Salah prefers that side, Verts prefers that side. So it would be interesting to see, but it's the fullbacks I would then be. You know.
No, I agree. There's a lot of emphasis on probably that.
Yeah.
Isn't there, in that regard? So there's only 4 of this 5 can be forwards at a time.
Well, don't forget, you've got a CK still.
Yeah, but I mean, you want to attack with the 5, don't you? You want your safety net. So, so there's only 4. So someone's got to drop in.
Yeah.
But just dead quickly, because we do have to wrap it up now.
I actually don't mind that much though. I do think that's a good 5 and a 5.
Okay. Final question. Can Salah do that?
Yeah, of course he can do it.
Because then you've got that.
Yeah. I think I would... But what happens to TK?
Well, I only ask because we've got one centre-forward that the manager trusts.
Yeah.
And we've got...
And he gets tired after
3-4 months of the season left. And we've shown this. I think the manager's shown unwillingness to use Federico Chiesa, and actually an understandable unwillingness after the last few weeks. But you've got to have someone who can spell like a TK, and I just wonder whether it could be Mo.
Yeah, potentially. You know, there's room there for that. I think TK does tend to get a bit leggy after about 70. You obviously haven't got Isak there, so it's definitely an option. Like, but I think from the start of games, TK starts. And if TK starts, he starts as the 9. And based on what we've seen of late, I wouldn't have much of a problem if Gakpo come out the team. But I like on the left side. He combines well with Kirkes. Salah there, and maybe because Salah's better at like lasting the 90. Maybe it's a case of
you shift him.
Yeah, on 70 minutes, Salah goes there, TK there, TK comes off. And
Sabozlai,
yeah, you can play with it, but I would view that point that you've just made as more of a substituting thing at around 70.
That was a clip from the deep dive. To check out the whole show, simply download the Redmen Plus app or click the link in the description.